Wyatt Langford finally got his first home run, and it wasn't the way anybody expected. Plus, this team is doing something that last year's World Series team couldn't even do. We're talking about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into Wyatt Langford's first big league home run, what it means for him and this team doing something that last year's World Series team did not do, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. It's $150 win or lose. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Now, the Rangers won this weekend series against the Reds. It was a very opposite kind of series than the Rangers had against the Reds last year. It's around this same time last year, towards the end of April, the Rangers were around 500. We weren't quite sure if this team was going to contend just yet. But last year, the Rangers went into Cincinnati and they lost 3 incredibly painful one-run games. Just truly abysmally painful one-run games, including a couple of them were 7-6 in a row. Actually, they weren't all one-run losses, but they were all blown leads, blown saves, bottom walk-off losses. It was actually, they weren't all. One was not a walk-off loss. One was just the Rangers allowed 7 runs in the final in the 7th and 8th inning, 6 of them coming in the 8th inning. That was the second straight one-run loss, which was just, oof. It was the start of the beginning of the end for the Rangers bullpen. That series kind of signified from that point on that the Rangers bullpen was going to be a big problem for them. The Rangers stormed out to a 6-0 lead through 6 innings, allowed 1 run in the 7th, and then 6 whole runs in the 8th inning of that game, and then a couple of walk-offs, including a walk-off home run. Just a really painful, miserable series for the Rangers, and then they got some bad news about DeGrom later that week, and it seems like the Rangers were primed to fall apart. But in this series against the Reds, the Rangers won 2 different one-run games. Now, that may sound okay, boring, whatever, who cares, but this is something that the Rangers have not done in a long time. They have been just truly terrible in one-run games the last couple of years, including last year, where they still won 90 games, but they were 14-22 in one-run games, a .389 win percentage. That's bottom of the league level stuff. Usually you should be around 500 in one-run games. Sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you're the Marlins and you just never, ever lose. Last year's Marlins, not this year's. Last year's Marlins that just never, ever lost one-run games. But this team this year is starting to win those one-run games more than they lose them. 5-3 in one-run games at this point. And even if this team is just around 500 in those one-run games, this is a great sign for the Rangers. They're not clicking as a team just yet. They're not fully healthy. They're missing Josh Young. They're missing Cody Bradford, Max Scherzer, Jacob deGrom, Tyler Mahle. All those guys are missing at this point, but this team's still treading water, still above 500. Hasn't been below 500 yet this year. Actually, Bruce Bochy has not been below 500 as the manager of your Texas Rangers in a year and, a month-ish into his tenure here. That's pretty darn good. And this is about what the Rangers were hoping for in this stretch early on. Tread water, do well enough while you wait for everybody to get back. And the Rangers, they did exactly that in this weekend series. But the biggest news of the weekend, besides winning those 2 one-run games, was, of course, Wyatt Langford breaking his home run drought. Finally, It happened. I was standing up in my apartment screaming as he was running around the bases and inside the park home run because, of course. Of course it is. Why would it not be an inside the park home run? Because that has just been the way it goes for young Mr. Langford. 27 games into his big league career. I believe that was at bat number 99 of his big league career. Might have been 100 exactly. He's got 101 at bats so far into his big league career, and there has been a trend of him knowing the strike zone very well and significantly better than umpires. Heck, heading into this game on Sunday, Wyatt Langford led Major League Baseball with 21 balls called strikes against him, which is just bonkers. Here's a look at it. If you're watching on YouTube, this was tweeted out by Sean McFarland before the Sunday game, and Scott Lucas of the Newberg Report quote tweeted it and said, 98 called strikes so far this season for Wyatt Langford. So by this math, about 1 in every 5 strike calls against Wyatt Langford this year has been wrong. Let that sink in. 1 out of every 5 called strikes has been wrong. That is a 20% miss. That's horrible. That is absolutely horrendous levels of balls being called strikes against him. And it happened yet again in this game. A couple of pitches. Thankfully, not in the at-bat where he hit the home run, but still later on in this game, an 0-0 fastball that was about a couple inches outside the plate. Well, that's a strike, apparently, to Wyatt Langford, and it has been all year. And one of the things that he did in this at-bat where he got his home run is he started fouling off pitches. He started expanding the zone more, not in an unhealthy way, not in a, oh my gosh, he's just chasing and trying to press, but in a, I know that's a ball, but I've got to swing in it because it's going to be called a strike, and I got to foul it off. And he has been doing so successfully. One of the trends early on with Langford that had me the slightest bit concerned, not overly worried, but just the slightest bit actually concerned was that he wasn't really doing damage on fastballs. He wasn't swinging at pitches that were mistake pitches early on in the counts, just in the middle of the zone. He just wasn't doing damage on those types of pitches, and this was a not a mistake pitch, not a bad pitch. It was about belt high. It is on the outer, not quite quarter of the zone, but still fully in the strike zone. A fastball that he laced to the opposite field, bounced off the corner. As soon as it bounced off of that wall, I knew, oh boy, we're about to see Wyatt Langford try for an inside the park home run. I didn't know if he was going to get it. I didn't know how quickly Jake Fraley would be able to get over to that ball. But once Wyatt Langford, who I thought off the bat initially it was going to be just an outside the park home run, just an opposite field shot into the bullpen, but it wasn't quite there. Would have been an out of the park home run in 6 different ballparks, including Great American Ballpark where the Reds play. So if this was last year, this would have been a pretty easy first home run, but we wouldn't gotten to see Wyatt Langford turn on those Jets and just go nuclear. I mean, the excitement in Dave Raymond's voice as he's calling us, as he's seeing this ball kick away, as Wyatt Langford's eyes just grew so large. I'm sure when he saw that ball bounce away, he's like, all right, I got the speed to make this happen. And thankfully, he didn't trip rounding second base like he did last week. The guys gave him a pretty hard time about that after he came back into the dugout. But just getting the monkey off of his back, getting that first one finally, and fouling off one of the pitches that was very, very close. The fourth pitch of this at bat, there was a fastball that was, at the top of the zone, height-wise, but about 2-3 inches off the plate. That's the kind of call that would have, normally resulted in strike 3. At that point, it was a hitter's count. Actually, no, he had 2 strikes at that point. So fouling off those pitches, because most of the pitches, if you were watching on YouTube and you saw that graphic of the ones that were balls called strikes against Wyatt Langford this year, almost all of them have been outside, the outside portion of the plate. So he's getting about 2 to 3 inches at times off the plate. So he is learning to expand the zone to foul off those pitches because there's not much you can do with them, but you've got to keep yourself alive in counts. You can't just go out swinging every single time or go out looking every single time because that's going to be called a strike. So he is adjusting. That is one of those adjustments that he is making. It's not one that he should have to make. The umpires should be adjusting to him and calling the actual zone the zone for everybody, not just because he's a touted rookie. Apparently something similar happened with Julio Rodriguez in his first year of just the zone being super expanded. And I feel like this happened a lot with Josh Young last year, which led to him expanding the zone and chasing a whole lot more. So maybe it's just going to be one rookie on the Rangers forever. I wonder who it's going to be next year, who's going to get this ridiculous expanded zone. But credit to Langford for sticking with his approach and saying, I know what strikes are, and I'll adjust a little bit to these bad umpires. But finally getting that first one off of his back, I think that the homers are going to start to come in bunches for him. But I have just been so impressed by what he's been doing, and that speed is just so much better, and I think any of us really, truly appreciated. Coming up, we're going to talk about Dane Dunning's dominant effort and why I just feel so much more comfortable with this year's bullpen than last year. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Mom's her gift, so give her the best this Mother's Day. Get gifts as thoughtful as she is with DoorDash. Select from hundreds of expertly crafted bouquets to the best tech and self-care essentials and more, delivered right to her door. Does Mom have a sweet tooth, or is she a tech enthusiast, a beauty connoisseur, or is she outdoorsy? No matter what she's into, you can make her feel special with some fruit or a flower bouquet, makeup, tech gear, workout wear, and more. Get all the Mother's Day gifts in one place. Get 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 plus on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. This episode is also brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag Eye play. You already talked about that. But there's just so much good stuff in this game. Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much more to get. You can get unique stickers that you can trade with your friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel boards with hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton, including their own unique minigames, like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. There's always something new with timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover with Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Now, Wyatt Langford's first homer of the year was definitely the main story in Sunday's game, but the second story, which might have even surpassed it, was Dane Dunning looking absolutely Dane dominant against the Reds. Just absolutely filthy, nasty, disgusting stuff from one Dane Dunning. 5 1/3 innings, just one hit, 2 runs, only one of them earned, and the unearned run happened to be scored when Josh Spores came in off the hill. But 10 strikeouts for Dane Dunning on 69 pitches, which was more than a nice outing. It was phenomenal. I mean, the swings and misses this guy was generating. Dane Dunning has been a strikeout machine so far this year. I mean, to the point where I'm like, okay, I guess this is just who he is now. I mean, he's second on the team in terms of the rotation in Ks per 9, 10.7 Ks per 9. Heck, he's just second on the team in general of guys who have pitched in more than 3 innings this year. Burke and Anderson both have 15 Ks per 9, but they have each pitched 3 innings and have ERAs of 12 or worse, so not really including them there. John Gray is the only one who is striking out more batters per 9 than Dane Dunning. But the walks have been a problem for him all year. The home runs have been a problem for him all year. But in this game, there were no walks. There were no home runs. Heck, there were only 3 hits in this one that Dane Dunning allowed. And 2 of them came back-to-back. He had a perfect game through 4 innings, and he just looked untouchable to a level that we haven't seen Dane Dunning maybe ever. He's had some 10 strikeout games with no walks. He's done that 3 times, where he's had 10 strikeouts and no walks. And the only other pitchers to do that are, I believe... here we go. I found it. It was a tweet by Adam J. Morris after the Rangers win on Sunday. He said, a list of all the pitchers who have struck out 10 or more batters while walking none 3 or more times for the Rangers. List starts with Nolan Ryan. Then you have Yu Darvish. And then Dane Dunning. Yeah. Dane Dunning. The only other Rangers who have done it twice are Gaylord Perry and Cliff Lee. I mean, that's just bonkers. It's just bonkers. I mean, he'll have these games eventually. There was a month and a half stretch or so where he had 3 different games that he just went absolutely nuclear last year, including one in San Francisco where he outdueled Logan Webb, who went 7 innings and struck out 10. Then there was that game where he went 8 2/3 innings. I believe that one was against the White Sox. He nearly had a complete game shutout, but a 2-run homer ended his day at 8 2/3, where he was just absolutely dominant. I mean, Dunning will have these games where he will look exceptional. But this is what you want from a guy who's probably your number 4 or 5 starter at this point. I mean, to be able to have games like this. And I was a little questionable about Bochy going and pulling him after just 69 pitches through 5 1/3 innings, but those 2 hits that he gave up in a row, those were scorched. I mean, side note. Ellie De La Cruz, oh my goodness, can that guy he's insane. He's a singular talent. He is unbelievable. Multiple, I believe at least 3 different balls that he hit in this series that were 110 miles an hour or faster off the bat with exit velocity. And also he stole, I believe, a billion bases in this game, including a run stolen home. I mean, he's so insanely fast and strong, and it's honestly very fun to watch. And I'm glad the Rangers were able to win a couple of these games because, man, I know he didn't put on, he didn't have any home runs in this series, but man, watching Ellie De La Cruz is very, very fun. But back to Dunning, this was magnificent for him, and for the pen to just come in and step up and hold this 4-run lead the Rangers had, from the first inning. Side note, Adolis Garcia hitting an 0-2 homer with 2 outs to give the Rangers that 2-0 lead, and then following it up 4 runs after 2 outs in that first inning. That's got to be so backbreaking. If you're the Reds, I mean, you strike out Semien, you strike out Seager, you think, okay, I'm almost out of this. Nathaniel Lowe gets a hit, and then you're up 0-2 on Adolis Garcia, and boom, now you're down 2-0 in the game. You get a single by Heim, and then Langford hits that ball and gets a home run, inside the park home run, and you're down 4-0 before you've even blinked. I mean, Abbott was very good in this one. I mean, 7 strikeouts in 5 1/3 innings, and those are the only runs that he allowed up. I mean, he didn't walk anybody. But that was enough for the Rangers because this year they have a pen they can trust. And even when the offense is inconsistent, and it was inconsistent this whole weekend. I mean, the Rangers only got 2 runs in the first game of this series. They were just getting mowed down pretty much by Ashcraft. And in their 2 wins, the Rangers were combined 0 of 8 with runners in scoring position. 0 of 8. They got all of their runs in the 2 wins this weekend via home run. 2 solo home runs was enough to win it on Friday. 2 2-run homers in the bottom of the first was enough to win it on Sunday. And then they got some more home runs in bunches in a game that looked like a blowout, but ended up not being a blowout. The Rangers made the Reds use their closer on Saturday in a game that just felt like just rough. He didn't think Corey Seager was going to play on his birthday, but he talked his way back into lineup in a day game after a night game and hits a home run on his 30th birthday, his 2nd of the season. He continues to absolutely sting baseballs. I mean, his average exit velocity was, in the bottom 25% of baseball, I think, before this past week. Now it's up over the 50% mark. He's at 89 miles an hour with his average exit velo, and I think it was like 85 or something ridiculous before. But he is absolutely stinging the baseball. He did have a costly error this weekend, but for the most part, he is looking like he is just about back to the full Corey Seager version of himself. His expected slugging percentage is about 150 points higher. His actual slugging percentage, he's going to start to get those hits in bunches. But while the Rangers have not had, Marcus Semien be, otherworldly, he did hit a massive go-ahead homer, his 5th of the year, including the scoring of 2 home runs, 2 solo home runs, 2 guys that are vying for 2nd place on the Rangers home run leaderboard this year. The 5th home run for Marcus Semien, 5th home run for Evan Carter, who just continues to hit way more home runs than anybody anticipated. I mean, the fact that Evan Carter's got 5 home runs this year and Wyatt Langford only has 1, and Wyatt Langford's 1 is an inside the Parker. That's a head-scratching but good thing for the Rangers of getting power from Evan Carter. Hopefully they'll start getting it from Wyatt Langford. But Adolis Garcia has been just so crucial to this Rangers offense, driving in runs. I know RBIs, I've poo-pooed them in the past, but they're an important stat. They're not quite as important, I think, as they were in, say 1950 or whatever, but they're still very important because Adolis Garcia got his, 2 different 2-out RBIs, and he now has 25 of them already on the season, which has been such a godsend for this Rangers offense that has been struggling to find some consistency. But, Simeon is always stepped up in the clutch. In non-clutch situations, he hasn't been as good a hitter, but if you're going to be good in either clutch or non-clutch, I'd say the clutch scenarios are a much better way to, much more important to find your offense there. And Adolis Garcia has just been absolutely humming to start this year. I said at the beginning of this year, I thought Adolis Garcia was going to take another step forward. I thought he had an MVP type level season in him, and so far he has been proving me very, very right, hitting 291, slugging 592, an OPS of 934. He isn't walking at nearly the rate he was last year. He is striking out at a not super great rate and chasing a little bit more, whiffing a little bit more, but he has been absolutely annihilating baseballs left, right, and center, and he has been so important for this Rangers offense, and I think that he really deserves all the appreciation and love in the world. And for all the people who have doubted him for the last 3 years, I don't know what it's going to take to silence them and make them realize that this is one of the best players in baseball. But you know what else is great? This Rangers bullpen. Also, another guy who might be joining the bullpen, might be joining the rotation in a couple of years that I got a firsthand look at for the first time this weekend. We'll talk about that and more right after this from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that's safe, secure, and so easy to use. The Rangers and the Stars and the Mavs both have big playoff series going right now. You can bet on them. I believe they had some pretty decent finals chances for both of them. If you're thinking they are going to join the Rangers in winning championships in the 2020s, go check it out. The odds on FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Now, it wasn't all good news that the Rangers got this weekend. They also got some bad news on Cody Bradford. I'll talk about that in just a second because can't believe I've gone this long yet again. So sorry to Davis Wenzel. I keep forgetting to mention his wonderful accomplishments, but the first big league homer was not a pinch hit homer, but he had come in for Marcus Semien. I mean, a game's out of hand when the Rangers are subbing out Marcus Semien. That was not something that happened. I don't think it happened at all last year, blowout or not. I think he played literally every single inning of every single game from the start of the season through the postseason. I like that the Rangers are giving him some innings off. I mean, be the Iron Man, play all 162, but if a game's a blowout, then, taking him out of the game is not the worst thing in the world. But congrats to Davis Wenzel, former Baylor Bear, for getting his first big league homer, making the Reds, not go out quietly in a game where the Rangers were getting shut out in that Saturday game. Corey Seager followed with the homer, and the Rangers poured on a couple more runs, and it was a nice, reminder that this team can get those big innings going, can, really make things. I think if the Reds didn't throw their closer out there, Alexis Diaz, then the Rangers might have been able to come back and win that game, but Diaz was very good, shut the door on the Rangers in that one. But they got some bad news about former Baylor Bear, not Davis Wenzel, but Cody Bradford. He's on the IL with what was originally diagnosed as a lower back strain, but now it seems like it's a little bit more complicated than that. He's probably going to miss more of a month. It's not a lower back strain, but it is a small stress fracture in the 12th rib, the bottom and the shortest in the rib cage. It is, as Evan Grant wrote about this in the Dallas Morning News, he said it is considered a floating rib as it does not attach to the rest of the rib cage. That is a more complicated issue than just a lower back strain. Initially, when I saw this being tweeted about, I thought, did he suffer a broken rib while he was already out with the back strain? But no, this is what the issue was all the entire time. So he is going to miss about a month, and it seems like Max Scherzer is going to make his first start of the year before Cody Bradford comes back off the IL. That's not ideal. And I think that's why the Rangers might have made that signing that they did in Johnny Cueto, just for some extra depth, because even though if everyone was fully healthy, the Rangers have probably 9-10 guys that you feel decent about starting a major league game and being okay. Right now, about half of those guys are on the IL or in, they're either on the IL or they are Jose Urena and they are in the pen. So that is not great news on Cody Bradford. Hoping that he can have a speedy recovery, come back fully, and look like the dominant version of himself that we saw early this season. But you know who else looked dominant this weekend? It was not somebody that I saw in a major league game. Somebody I saw in a minor league game. And that's one Emiliano Teodo. Just a fantastic start for him in Double-A Frisco. I believe it was the longest outing he has had on the year. He went 5 innings. I was only able to stay for 4 of them since I had to be a great son and pick up my parents from the airport. No, this was the second time that he has gone 5 innings in a start. He also did that on April 20th. Went 4 innings on his second start of the year, April 13th, and 2 1/3 innings of a just not great first start at Wichita, where he went 2 2/3, allowed 4 hits, 4 runs, all of them earned, and 3 walks. But in this one, 8 strikeouts for him, just a couple of runs that were earned. None of those scored in the first 4 innings while I was there. Maybe I was his bad luck charm that once I left, things got a little bit more dicey for him. But the strikeouts were so impressive. I mean, he dialed up that fastball all the way up to 101 miles an hour. And at times there were a couple of pitches where it looked kind of straight, but he was sitting, 98, 99. Had a couple of times where he dipped all the way down to 96 or so. But like I've said about him before, the fastball is impressive. It's better now that it's a two-seamer. It's got some movement and it's not super straight. But the breaking ball, the slurve or curveball or slider, he changes it up depending on the situation. That breaking ball that runs all the way up to, I believe he got it up to 92, might have been up to 94. The changeup also looked okay, passable, which is a good sign for him. Having a third pitch, being a starting pitcher, you need a third pitch, even though he can manipulate that breaking ball to look like a slider or a slurve or a curve, basically just really change it up quite a bit. But that breaking ball is his best pitch by far. I mean, he was getting it early in counts for called strikes. He was getting a lot of really ugly swings, including a batter where he swung through that same pitch 3 different times to get the strikeout. I mean, it was just nasty. And when he's throwing strikes, when he's staying in the zone, he is able to get himself out of some jams. I mean, he was able to get himself out of a jam with a leadoff single. He had the runner picked off. I mean, he was very, very good. Had another strike him out, throw him out, double play. I mean, he is fast to the plate. He has some good pickoff moves. The fastball is, sitting in the upper 90s, touching 101 in that 4th inning. So it's not like he is just blowing it by guys and losing velocity late on. This might be an actual starting pitcher. I mean, I loved what I saw from him. It's just one game, so I don't want to get too high about it. But my first look at him was a very, very impressive look at Emiliano Teodo. He might up in the Rangers' pen, but you got to stick with that guy as a starter as long as you can, because right now this Rangers bullpen is looking fantastic. I mean, Kirby Yates has gone 11 games into the season. He still hasn't allowed a single earned run. And this is the first time that he ever got into any real trouble. I mean, that game, that 9th inning on Sunday, it could have gotten dicier. And had it not been for a brilliant defensive play by Marcus Semien to start the inning, a little glove flip on a ball that was just a little dribbler, just an itty bitty dribbler that normally I think would have been a single. It only had a 280 expected batting average, but it was just barely squeaking by there. Then it gets into a little bit of trouble for the first time this year. I mean, most of Kirby Yates' saves have felt pretty chill, pretty comfortable. There haven't been a whole lot of base runners on. He doesn't walk very many guys, and so he doesn't give up a lot of hard hits. He doesn't give up a lot of hits in general, really at all. I believe his whip is still below 0.5, so less than half a base runner per inning. Let's see. No, his whip is at exactly 0.5. So literally only a base runner every other inning, which is just bonkers. But He gives up a single, gives up a walk, has a couple of guys on in a 1-run game. Then he gets Heimer Candelario to strike out. Just a really bad day for him at the plate. Then 2 outs, up comes Luke Maile. Luke Maile just lines a rocket, but right at Josh Smith. 101.6 miles an hour off the bat. A 7.10 expected batting average in a 1-run game with a runner in scoring position that, if it wasn't hit right at Josh Smith, might have tied the game, might have been the first earned run or really any run that Yates has allowed this season, but that wasn't the case. And it wasn't the case for this Rangers pen to give up much of anything. This was the first time they really gave up much of anything this weekend, giving up a couple of unearned runs, but Spores looked, pretty darn good in this one. Latz worked a shutout inning. Heck, David Robertson comes in, pitches a perfect 1-2-3 inning, striking out the side in order, and has a 1.17 ERA on the season. Spores hasn't allowed an earned run this year. Yates hasn't allowed an earned run this year. Robertson, I believe, has just 1 earned run this year so far. No, make that 2 earned runs in 15 in a third innings with 18 strikeouts. I mean, this pen has been so much better than advertised, and I feel very vindicated in predicting that this pen would be better. They have been better than last year. It's hard to be worse than last year, but the fact that they've been maybe the best pen in baseball, I don't know about best pen, but they've been incredible. And just knowing that there's so much variance with relievers, and the Rangers got 2 solid guys in Yates and Robertson, just adding those 2 guys to a Leclerc and to a Spores, which, by the way, I think Leclerc might be working his way back into a leverage situation. We saw him there in a leverage situation on Friday night, throwing a perfect inning and not allowing just any kind of hope. 2 strikeouts in that perfect inning in the 8th in the Friday night win. And then Yates coming on for the save in the Friday night win, his 4th of the season. Now he has 5 saves on this season. I mean, you got 4 guys that you feel, 5 guys. Heck, Jacob Latz has looked incredible too. I mean, you have 5 guys back there that you feel very, very comfortable, at least I feel very comfortable with, in high leverage. You got Yates, you got Robertson, Latz, Leclerc, Spores. I'm feeling comfortable putting Leclerc back into leverage situations. And, oh, by the way, you also have Cole Winn in there for the low leverage situations, who hasn't allowed a single hit yet in his first 6 big league innings, his first 4 appearances. And he's also struck out 7 and walked just 1. I mean, this pen, and oh, by the way, Jonathan Hernandez is back, and he's looked pretty good in his 1 outing so far as well. I mean, if Urania is your worst guy in the pen, which, by worst, I mean just long man. I mean, he's been pretty darn good this year, and it was the first really bad outing of the year that we saw on Saturday in a game that the Rangers were already losing 5-0 by the time he got into it. So, I mean, the turnaround of this pen, the offense isn't quite there yet. The starting pitching is, hit and miss, but mostly pretty solid so far this year. That's why this Rangers team is winning games. And once that offense starts to kick into gear, once the rotation starts to get more settled and healthier, I mean, having this level of pen, I mean, oh my gosh, it is just so much nicer to watch these games and not have a heart attack every single time the Rangers enter the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning with a lead. This weekend series was another, nail in the coffin of saying this team is very different than last year, and it is in a very, very good way. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.